Hello everyone, my name is Christian Eschbach, and welcome to another one of my album reviews. Alright, carrying on with the Iron Butterfly. So we have done the Heavy album, we did that a long time ago. Just covered In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. So now we're on to album number 3, Ball. And this came out of this nifty little pack here. You can see it's the middle CD. The only way I was able to get Ball, now apparently there was a special edition release done in the 90s. It's not in print anymore. Definitely not easily available, because I looked, couldn't find it. The only way I could get this was by buying this set. Am I upset that I bought this set to get this particular album? If it was only this album that was in there and not 2 other albums on top of that, maybe a little bit. Just a little bit. Let me get into this. Albums opens up with In the Time of Our Lives. All right. This one right away reminds me of how badly Iron Butterfly is looked in the world of the early heavy metal. There is a combination of brooding on here, eerie organs. Weirdly, the guitar sometimes gets flowery and vibrant, even though it's like metal fuzzed out. And then you got some great styled percussion on here. It really adds to the tempo and whatnot, but it really gives off a vibe that is very similar to early Sabbath. And this is the 3rd album. This is not a vibe that is new. This is a vibe that is actually kind of carried on from the beginning. If anything, the In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida album left a little of that eerie gloom and doom side behind, whereas the first album, Heavy, had a lot of it, and this album kind of picks back up with where they left off with the first album. This album is also definitely an evolution. Like, you can hear a growth in the sound. The first album to the second album, definitely a switch in there. Part of that also has to do with musicians. Now, I'm not going to get into the musician switch-ups when I'm doing the individual reviews, because the musician switch-ups, which I'm going to get into, is actually a huge part of when I go to do an Iron Butterfly rap party. Yeah! Yes, I am going to do an Iron Butterfly rap party after I cover all the Iron Butterfly albums. That is the plan. Okay, so I'm going to get into the musicians when I do that. But you definitely notice musician changes as you go through. This album, however, has the exact same lineup as In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. So there are no changes that way. The sound is all the same still as you would find on In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. The only difference is this is going back a little more to the darker, broodier side of things. And a lot of that comes from, I find, the organist, keyboardist, piano player, the guy that tickles the ivories, Doug Ingles. He was a major writer on the first 3 albums, and that's because he left after this album. This was the last album. This album gets really dark. Really dark. Because after you go In the Time of Our Lives, it lightens up a little bit going into Soul Experience, but then we're going to switch back again later on. It's kind of really... I'll get into this. Okay, so Soul Experience, as I said, it lightens up the mood substantially. It walks a line, actually, between lighthearted and whimsical. Staying on the lighthearted side, never quite crossing into whimsical. And it's a really nice kind of follow-up after the first song, In the Time of Our Lives, but not necessarily the song I want to hear. A little too light for me, maybe. Next up, Lonely Boy. This is the first song on this album that actually feels different from Iron Butterfly. Really kind of different from Iron Butterfly. In the early stuff, can you hear a little bit of soul in there? Yeah, sure. But this kind of takes it into a different direction. This is like they kind of went from their, that distinct California acid rock kind of sound, and they kind of like followed Alice Cooper to Detroit and discovered Motown. Like there's definitely parts in here that really kind of make me think they had just binged the Smokey Robinson catalog. Kind of where I'm going with that one, yeah. After that, we got Real Fright. This has a swing sound that belongs in episodes of The Munsters. If you've ever watched The Munsters, I'm talking the classic original black and white episodes of The Munsters. This song really has a vibe and feel that feels right out of there. And going from Lonely Boy into this one, it's actually really nice. I kind of downplayed Lonely Boy a little bit, whereas I think it's one of the best songs on this album. And Real Fright following it up kind of works really well because I think this is the other really good song off this album. And it's kind of, once again, great juxtaposition going from kind of the one song to the other with the way the flow is. After that, you get In the Crowds. It's kind of basic Iron Butterfly, nothing special. It Must Be Love follows that. I'm not sure how I feel on this one. It's got some great hooks to it, but at the same time, it feels kind of generic for the time and very kind of region locked. It both hits and misses the mark for me. Best analogy I can come up with is picture an arrow flying towards the target, and the arrow kind of breaks apart. It's a faulty arrow. It breaks apart, flies apart as it's going. But every last part still hits that bullseye in that target. It's just kind of best way I know how to put it for the way this song kind of feels for me. Her favorite style is After That. To me, this is actually the perfect example of California acid rock. You can hear Mamas and Papas in there, and I know it sounds weird for me to say acid rock and put the Mamas and Papas in there, but they are California rock very much, and there are definitely parts of the Mamas and Papas that definitely were picked up and used by bands from the acid rock era, but also, as I'm talking about that era, I'm talking Jefferson Airplane as well. I'm talking about the Doors. I'm talking Alice Cooper, the original group pre-signing with the Warner Brothers label and working with Bob Ezrin. I'm talking like the Frank Zappa era, including Frank Zappa in this as well. And even the early surf rock kind of stuff, that really experimental, musically poetic kind of stuff. And that's all really kind of like, when you mash that all together, that's kind of like that California acid rock sound, and that's really kind of what you're getting on this song. You really feel it and taste it. And then we're on to Filled with Fear. This is one of those ones, once again, we're back to Iron Butterfly doing haunting and eerie, that whole kind of creepy, scary horror movie kind of vibe, doing it exceptionally well. And with this particular song, I'm really surprised that they were never asked to do horror movies. This song would have been perfect in a Hammer film or in a Grindhouse exploitation movie, over silent films like Nosferatu or Metropolis. You get kind of where I'm going with this. Old Vincent Price black and whites even, like it just has that perfect sound for it that would have been great. And when you look at bands like Pink Floyd that regularly did soundtracks, and with how fast this band was popping out albums at this time, it really is a bit surprising that they did not do that. So I think they should have. I think it was something maybe might have been lost by not doing it. And then we get to the last song of the album, which is Beldebeest. This is back more to the lighter side, the more hippie trippy shit that's Iron Butterfly, kind of like the Flowers and Beadsy kind of stuff. This won't necessarily lull you to sleep, but it is definitely more you're out in the sunlight and a lot less dark and moody clouds. The whole way around, I was surprised to find out while I was doing my research for all this stuff that Ball was actually their best performing album. It hit number 3 on the US charts. And I'm not quite sure how this was their best performing album. And it really is a shame because I think most people probably went out and picked up this album thinking, okay, it's going to be this killer follow up to In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, and it really isn't a killer follow up to In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. Compared to In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, this album kind of falls a little flat to me. Uh, Out of all of their albums, and I am going to review all of them, this is my least favorite, I think, honestly. No spoilers. But I was so disappointed with this album. I mean, it's not a bad album, but compared to all their other albums, there's only one album I think I like less than Ball. Only one I can think of, which I haven't gotten to yet. Be coming up soon. Anyways, that's what I think of the Ball album, folks. Let me know what you think. If you've listened to this album, tell me what you think. That's what the comment section is for. If you've never listened to Iron Butterfly, this is not the place you want to start. For the love of God, do not start here. Honestly, start with either Heavy or In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida is probably the best spot to start. That's where everybody starts. But do not start with Ball. This might turn you off of Iron Butterfly. I know it would have turned me off a little bit. All right, folks, my thoughts, my views, my opinions. Let me know what your thoughts and views and opinions are. I've already covered that. That's what the comment section's for. Hit the like button, the subscribe button, the little bell for notifications. Helps out both of us. There's a link that goes to Patreon down below as well. I got some other things you might find links for below because I'm working on stuff. Peace, love, take care.